Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 9. Last week, the English department had our annual ceremony honoring the winners of the English 1 Research Paper Prize. We honored 5 students whose final research papers just blew our minds. It's the department's favorite event of the year because the winners all read a paragraph from their essays and talk about why they wrote it. Our research librarian, Bren Antrim, described the research process that created the essays as, quote, students using research to bring structure to passion. Afterward, another professor said, these students finding their voices, sharing their passion, and thinking critically is what inspires me to keep going. And next year, it could be you. So we are starting our research journey today by looking back at what some past winners wrote about. But before we do that, this is where you're going to find all of the information about the research paper within the research paper module. And well, you're obviously probably looking at this page right now. So the first reading that we're going to do is called Developing a Thesis-Driven Argument. So what a research paper is an argument based on research, right? So that means that it's going to have a thesis statement, which has to be debatable in some way. So you can't just say something like pollution is bad for the environment. An example of a debatable thesis statement would be at least 25% of the federal budget should be spent on limiting pollution. Right? So you can see what happens as you start going from a larger topic and you narrow it, start focusing it down on something that's a little bit more specific. So to give you a sense of what some people have written about before, here are our winners. The English department archives all of the essays that have won the contest, and then we use them in our classes. So we will actually be, in this class, reading some of these essays written by past students. So the first one is, first place winner this year was The Rise of Social Media Influencers, Teen Girls' Delusions of Pop Culture. The second place winner focused on rape culture. The third place winner focused on lies, fabrications, and misinformation on social media. And then we actually had a two-way tie for honorable mention. Normally we just have one, but we really couldn't decide. And so there was an essay on Black Lives Matter. And what was really interesting is the student was talking about how she ended up writing about that. And it wasn't actually her first choice. But then kind of in the middle of the semester last spring, the George Floyd protests started. And she said she couldn't write about anything else. And that's how she chose that topic. And the other honorable mention was an urgent call to reform sexism and injustice in artificial intelligence. So as you can see, the range of topics is varied. People do research and write about things they want to know more about. So this first assignment is for you to figure out what you want to know more about. Where do I want to look now? So for example, she keeps pushing my hand. If you're obsessed with the election right now, which a lot of people are, you could write about that. So your research question might be something like, how are candidates using social media platforms like Twitch to further their campaigns? Or if you're really interested in local politics, how will Measure J address systemic racism in Los Angeles? Or maybe you're interested in the protests in Nigeria and their government's violent crackdown. Do research on that. Or maybe you're interested in climate change. So your research question might be, how are countries threatened by sea level rise addressing climate change? Maybe you're interested in plastic or renewable energy or anything like that. If you can't think of anything, think about your major. What topics come up related to that? Perhaps the research paper you do now might be a germ that turns into a larger research project that you do after you transfer. So to start with, I want you to think about what you want to know more about. Stop pushing my hand. And post your research question below. So you can post it right down here. If you aren't sure about something, post it anyway. Right? If you can always change your mind after you begin your research, right? So maybe you have a question you think is going to be great, you start doing research and you're like, I hate this. If you have more than one, put them all, right? Maybe somebody else might take one of your ideas if they can't think of anything. Or maybe somebody's feedback might help you to just focus in a different way. So then what I want you to do is respond to one of your classmates' questions with a question that you have about that topic, right? So if you were reading a research paper, what would you expect to learn, or what would you want to know? What this will do is help your classmates start to frame what it is that they'll focus on in their research. If you have any questions, feel free, of course, to email me or to come to office hours. I also want to point out that in this assignment, I've also included a video about the English department's research paper contest that gives you 10 little facts about it that can help you as you're preparing your essay to potentially be nominated. And if you have questions more broadly about what the research paper will look like, I'm going to be posting assignments to this. It's going to be our third and final module. So each of these smaller assignments is going to be a step on the ladder reaching towards the research paper. And here's a description of the research paper itself. It's a 7 to 9 page argumentative paper about a topic about which you are passionate or curious to know more. One thing that I do ask you to do is always include a counter argument, because part of civic discourse means being able to imagine somebody else's perspective. Your essay should be in MLA format. I've just found out that Google Drive actually has an MLA formatted document that you can use as a template. So I included that link as well for you. The other thing is that your essay must be supported by at least 5 credible sources, 2 of which must be from scholarly databases. So the next assignment is going to focus on how to do that. All right, thanks. Take care.